begins on Bradley Street in Lake Charles, Louisiana. A small duplex, the kind of home where families carve out lives, children play on front steps, and neighbors walk by without much notice. On the surface, nothing marked it as different from the countless other homes in this working-class community. But inside that duplex, on a summer morning in August 2024, police made a discovery that would shock the city and send ripples through 2 states. 2 bodies, 2 lives cut short, and a house where, according to law enforcement, children were present when it all unfolded. Courtney Grogan was 39 years old, though to her family and friends she was Bunny, a woman remembered in tributes as vibrant and dedicated above all else to her children. Her life, like so many, was complicated, but at its core was motherhood. She carried joy into the rooms she entered, and those who knew her best described her as a woman who loved deeply, laughed freely, and lived for the little ones who called her Mom. Alongside her that day was Cyrille C.J. Mitchel Jr., 40 years old, a man whose name sometimes appeared spelled with a second L, Mitchel, though in official police filings it often appeared without it. A small detail, but one that serves as a reminder of how accuracy in reporting matters, because even in tragedy, their names deserve to be spelled correctly, to be remembered as they were. On the morning of August 19, 2024, Lake Charles police officers responded to the Bradley Street duplex. Inside, they found Courtney and CJ, both dead. There was no chance of revival. The stillness of the rooms was broken only by the arrival of officers and the hum of radios calling in the grim reality. Police would later confirm that children were inside the home at the time of the killings, including the children that both of the suspects shared with Courtney. For the officers on scene, it was not just a double homicide. It was also a house filled with little ones who had just lived through unimaginable trauma. For 10 days, the investigation unfolded quietly, but with urgency. Detectives pieced together witness statements, followed leads across parish and state lines, and coordinated with federal partners. It wasn't until August 29th, 10 days after the discovery, that the arrests finally came. And when they did, they came almost simultaneously, in 2 different jurisdictions, underlining the reach and complexity of the case. At 6 in the morning, in Port Arthur, Texas, U.S. Marshals and local police officers moved in at a workplace. They took into custody 38-year-old Shelton Terrell Tucker. He was arrested without major incident, and authorities announced he was facing 2 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of home invasion. His bond was set at $2.1 million. Police records indicated Tucker was the ex-boyfriend of Courtney Grogan and the father of at least one of her children. Just minutes later, across the state line in Jefferson Davis Parish, Louisiana, another team of law enforcement officers executed their arrest. In Welsh, in the Lacassine area, they found 39-year-old Desmond Duriel Brown. Brown, also an ex-partner of Courtney and also the father of one of her children, was booked not for pulling the trigger but under Louisiana law as a principal to first-degree murder. His bond was set at $1.5 million. 2 arrests, 2 states, 1 morning. It was as if the story split into parallel tracks that converged on Courtney and CJ's deaths. On one hand, you had Tucker, accused directly of the killings, charged with the gravest offenses possible, first-degree murder and home invasion. On the other hand, you had Brown, whose alleged role in the crime was less direct but no less serious in the eyes of Louisiana law. And here, the legal nuance matters. Louisiana's criminal code defines a principal as anyone concerned in the commission of a crime, whether they directly commit the act, aid and abet, or encourage it. It's a broad statute designed to hold accountable not only those who pull the trigger, but also those who stand behind them, who help make it possible. In practical terms, it means that even if Brown never fired a shot, if prosecutors can prove he played a role in planning, enabling, or facilitating the crime, he can be punished as if he did. To the layperson, this distinction can seem confusing, even unfair, but under Louisiana law, it is well established. And in this case, it meant that both men, two different fathers of Courtney's children, would now stand accused in connection to her death and CJ's. The announcement of the arrests stunned Lake Charles. Local headlines emphasized the shocking fact that both suspects shared children with Courtney, a detail police confirmed. It was an almost unbearable twist. The men accused of causing her death were not strangers, not distant figures, but people tied forever to her family tree. For those children, the trauma was doubled. Losing their mother, losing CJ, and now watching the men who fathered them face capital charges. As the case moved into the courts, bond hearings confirmed the seriousness of the allegations. Tucker's bond was set higher, reflecting the state's view of his direct involvement. Brown's was lower, but still in the millions, underscoring that his alleged role was far from peripheral. Each appeared separately before judges. Each faced cameras and court documents that laid out their charges plainly. And for the community of Lake Charles, the questions grew louder. How could this happen? Why did it come to this? The trials themselves, as of 2025, remain pending. Neither Tucker nor Brown has been convicted, and both remain legally presumed innocent until proven guilty. Delays in Louisiana courts are not unusual, and homicide cases, especially those carrying the possibility of capital punishment, often take years before they reach trial. Defense attorneys file motions, prosecutors gather evidence, and families wait. For Courtney and CJ's loved ones, justice has been delayed. And with that delay comes anguish, uncertainty, and the gnawing fear that closure may still be years away. But beyond the legal battle lies the human story. Courtney's life was not defined by the headlines of her death. In family tributes and community recollections, she was remembered for her smile, her humor, and her devotion to her kids. Those children were her anchor, the reason she worked, the reason she pushed forward through struggles. CJ, too, was remembered as a man with a presence in his community, someone whose life mattered beyond the brief lines of a police press release. Their story also sits inside a larger American crisis, the crisis of intimate partner violence. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reports that on average, 24 people per minute in the United States experience rape, physical violence, or stalking by an intimate partner. That adds up to more than 12 million women and men over the course of a single year. And the Violence Policy Center has documented that Black women, like Courtney, are murdered by men at nearly 3 times the rate of white women. In 2022, for instance, the homicide rate for Black women killed by men was 3.2 per 100,000, compared to 1.2 for white women. These are not abstract numbers. They are stories like Courtney's. Lives like hers, families like hers. So when we speak of the Bradley Street murders, we cannot stop at the details of the arrests. We must see the broader landscape, the systemic vulnerabilities, the patterns of violence, and the way race, gender, and geography intersect to create risk. Lake Charles, like many communities, has struggled with domestic violence, with the resources to prevent it, and with the speed of its justice system. And Courtney and CJ's deaths, tragic as they are, highlight those failures. There is another lesson here too, one about accuracy and dignity. In some court records and press accounts, CJ's surname was spelled with one L, in others with 2. It may seem small, but it reflects a broader truth. The people at the center of these cases deserve the respect of correct reporting. They are not just case numbers. They are names, families, lives. And in true crime storytelling, accuracy is not just a matter of journalistic integrity. It is a form of respect. As we wait for trials to begin, the courthouse halls remain quiet. The docket sheets carry their names, but the verdicts have yet to be written. And in that waiting, there is pain. For Courtney's children, the questions are deeper than any statute can answer. For CJ's family, the grief is compounded by delay. And for the community, the shadow of Bradley Street lingers, reminding everyone of the fragility of life, the cost of violence, and the silence that follows after gunfire. But silence does not mean forgetting. Courtney's life mattered. CJ's life mattered. The children's safety and healing matter. And the pursuit of justice, though delayed, still matters. When the trials come, when the evidence is laid out, when the juries hear testimony, the hope is not only for accountability but also for truth. to understand how two fathers became defendants in the deaths of the woman they once loved and the man who stood beside her. And so, this story closes not with resolution, but with reflection. A duplex on Bradley Street is now just another house, but for those who knew Courtney and CJ, it will never be ordinary again. It is a marker of loss, of tragedy, of questions that remain unanswered. Yet, it is also a call to awareness, to recognize the warning signs of domestic violence, to strengthen the systems meant to protect families, and to honor the lives that too often become footnotes in crime reports. Courtney Grogan, Cyrille C.J. Mitchel Jr., their names must be said, must be remembered, must be honored. And as the legal system continues its slow march toward resolution, may their story remind us of the urgency of justice, the importance of accuracy, and the need to protect the vulnerable before tragedy strikes. Because in Lake Charles, on Bradley Street, two fathers were arrested, two lives were lost, children were left behind, and a community is still waiting for justice.